Hi there, I'm X King. Welcome back to another episode of From the Archive. Today we're talking about one of the all-time classics, Lawrence of Arabia. Lawrence of Arabia was directed by David Lean and is actually about a real-life person, T.E. Lawrence. And it's also based off his own book about his own life, kind of. The film was written by Michael Wilson and Robert Bolt. Wilson was the first writer brought on, but David Lean felt he was too focused on the historical accuracy of the Arab Revolt and brought on Robert Bolt to refine the dialogue, really. For casting Lawrence, they actually went through a couple interesting decisions. At first, they wanted Marlon Brando, who turned down the role. Then they turned to Albert Finney, and despite him doing several different screen tests for this movie, allegedly, also turned down the role. They finally found Peter O'Toole, and he became Lawrence of Arabia. The film, music-wise, is done by Maurice Struddy. I apologize if I mispronounced that name. And he was actually brought on after the two composers they had earlier, William Walton and Malcolm Arnold, both had to drop out of the project. So he was kind of brought on as a last-minute replacement to really make a good score for this very, very long epic. The film actually went through a lot of difficulties in shooting, mainly due to the fact that Robert Bolt ended up being arrested for protesting nuclear weapons. Sam Spiegel actually had to go and convince him to sign a paper saying he would basically never do it again in order to get him out of jail. So it was a miracle that the film was released on December 10th, 1962. And critics and audiences alike flocked to this film. This movie was a huge success financially, though exact box office numbers are really hard to find from that time period, and was a huge success critically, cementing itself as one of the biggest classics to ever come out of the decade. The film won 7 out of 10 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and to this day it is heralded as one of the best films ever made. Yeah, this is not going to be an easy review. So let's talk about it for a few minutes. So the story of Lawrence of Arabia follows Lawrence, who is a military officer in the British Army, who is sent be part of the Arab Revolt, to kind of report back to them about what they want to accomplish and all that stuff. But he ends up basically helping the revolt win several battles and becoming a key figure in the revolt. So, a lot of people smarter than me have analyzed this film as a character study. And I'm going to get more into that when I get into the characters. But needless to say, I actually looked at this film a little bit differently. I think it's a commentary of the idealism of war versus the cold, harsh reality, as Lawrence himself is an idealist and views this war in a very, very idealistic manner, believing that if he can help the Arab rebels win enough battles, they will win their freedom, without realizing that he's just being manipulated by literally every person in this film. The British soldiers are manipulating him to be basically use him as a sledgehammer to beat down the Turks. The American journalists end up manipulating him to be a symbol so they can get their people into the war. And even his own Arab friends are kind of manipulating them, as the prince who is in charge of the Arab revolt kind of reveals at the end of the movie that he's kind of okay that Lawrence is gone because Lawrence has accomplished what he needed him to accomplish. Become a symbol to make his bargaining position that much better when dealing with the French and the English. So, yeah. I definitely love the idea that this film puts forth, and I could spend hours along talking about certain scenes and delving into the philosophical angles that I believe that they were going with. That being said, even though I find this film very intriguing and I do admit it is probably one of the best films I've ever seen. I do have problems, mainly due to the pacing issues I felt like the film had. There are certain times where, though the shots are beautiful and jaw-dropping, that I felt like the film was just showing off good scenery and not progressing the story when they really should have, causing the film to drag at certain points. Also, this is a film in a long line of films that starts at the end. And I do not like it when movies do that because, long story short, this film opens up with Lawrence being dead. That means I know that Lawrence is not going to die in Arabia because I saw him die at the beginning of the movie. I know he's going to die in a crash in the United Kingdom. I know he's not going to die on the battlefield in the desert. So the stakes feel a little shallow at times because I know he's not going to die in those situations that he finds himself in. That being said, I still want to reiterate, this film is really good. The story, though pacing is an issue, I feel like is intriguing and again has a lot of good philosophical angles. Now, as for the character study bit, that leads me into another nitpick I have. The character of Lawrence. So, if this is a character study, I have a problem. I do not feel connected to Lawrence, our main character and the source of the character study, at all. To me, he feels hollow and like a symbol. I felt no emotional connection to the guy. I really didn't understand why Lawrence was the way Lawrence was. Now, to be fair, that might have been the point, as Lawrence himself really didn't understand himself, and that's part of the main conflict of the story. That being said, if I'm watching a movie, I want to feel some emotional investment in our main character, and I just didn't feel that. Again, I do like a lot of the moments that they built around the character and the idea of self-discovery within this harsh desert wasteland that he finds himself in, but it just felt kind of hollow at times, and I just really wanted to be invested in the character. Now, the performance by Peter O'Toole is absolutely amazing. I can picture no one else in this role. I am very glad that he took on this role because holy crap, every moment he is definitely T. Lawrence, and you definitely buy him in every scene that he's in. And the other actors do an amazing job as well. This is probably one of the best performed films I have ever seen, as every actor is amazing in their given roles. The visuals are jaw-dropping, beautiful, amazing. Though I have problems with the fact that they seem to take up random spaces in the film where I feel like the story should just be progressing, I can't help but love the scenery here. This is shot so wonderfully. The way the dunes and the wind blows, you cannot replicate this stuff nowadays. This film is wonderfully well done, and the music score just bolsters how amazing this movie is. I really do like it. I do have those problems I mentioned earlier. So, is this film a buy, stream, or avoid altogether? Well, it's a timeless classic, so you definitely don't avoid it altogether. As for, is it a buy? Well, I have the Blu-ray copy, and this copy comes with an interview with Peter O'Toole, who's revisiting the Lawrence of Arabia, and a making of, and an interview with Steven Spielberg, who helped with the restoration process in the 1980s re-release, and a couple other features featuring older featurettes about Lawrence of Arabia. So, at the end of the day, this film's a buy. If you do not own this film in your collection, why are you watching my review? Click stop, go buy a copy, finish this review. This movie is fantastic. I have issues. I do not think it's perfect. But it is still worth the buy. You need to have this film in your collection. And if you don't, get one now. Anyway, that's my opinion on Lawrence of Arabia. What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. And next time, I'm going to be looking at something a little bit simpler. Grudge match. See you then.